Okay, I'd like to bring the Planning Commission meeting to order. Looks like we're recording as well. Okay, so I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Commissioner Hill has agreed to provide the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, thank you for that. Next, we have the roll call. We have Commissioner, or the Chair, Commissioner Ryan, absent today, as well as Commissioner Mangum, also absent today, but otherwise we do have a quorum. So we'll proceed. Next, we have time for public input. This is time set aside for any person to express ideas, concerns, comments, questions, or issues that are not listed as a public hearing on tonight's agenda. So if you have any comments that you'd like to make, please limit them to 3 minutes, and you're more than welcome to come up to the podium here.
My name is James Webster Wood. My friends call me Jamie. And I am here representing concerned citizens of Saratoga Springs. That's a new group that we're putting together, that we put together within the last couple of months. And it's concerning primarily right now, well, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm from Idaho. I was a farmer and rancher up in Idaho, up in the Rexburg area. I ran several farming corporations and LLCs and raised a lot of potatoes, and it was very enjoyable. But my most successful crop was my children and my family. We moved down here to Saratoga Springs in 2013. Bought a place out on the Talon Cove Golf Course. It was like heaven. We were in the country in 2013, 10 years ago. And we left and went and served a mission for the LDS Church, senior missionaries for a year and a half. Came back, that happened in 16, 17, we came back in 2018, and lo and behold, the world had found us. And it was amazing what the transformation was in those few years, that we were in the country when we left, and when we came back, we were in the middle of the city. And I've never seen anything grow so quickly as that happened. One of the things that I do and pride myself on is I see things. As a farmer, you drive around the farm and you look at your crops and you look at the color and you look at the size, you look at the leaves, you look at the weather, you look at all of those factors that go in. And those are the things that I feel like my expertise is in. I don't have a degree, although I call my degree a doctorate in life. I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none. One of the things that has struck me that I've noticed is that talking about Redwood Road and out through our neighborhood, anytime you can't sleep with your window cracked open because there's too much noise coming from the highway, there's too much noise. And that's the one thing that we're doing. We're here. We're trying to get UDOT to come and to correct the noise problem that they've created in our neighborhood. And it's just enormous, very enormous. One of the things that how long do I have? Somebody give me the. Okay, man, I got a long time. One of the things that I've noticed in driving around, I like to drive around and view things. One of the things that I've noticed, well, there's a lot of things that I noticed, but one thing that I want to bring to your attention, if you don't already know, you need to take a ride out south of town on Highway 68. Is that what Redwood is State Road 68? Is that correct? That's correct. Yeah. And there are two corporations out there, CMC and Geneva. And 2 or 3 years ago, they were pretty small. You know, they were just getting their feet under them and starting to pick up some speed. This last month, I made a trip to St. George, and I often go around that side of the lake, going to St. George, and oh my gosh, I couldn't believe how they've grown. And we estimate that there's somewhere in the neighborhood, depending on the year or the time of the year, somewhere between 150 and 250 trucks a day that come and go up and down that road. And they do, the speed limit is posted at 50. They're not doing 50. They're doing 60 or 65. And as far as a load is concerned, some of those trucks are carrying can carry as much as 80,000 pounds. That would include the tractor trailer. But that's a lot of weight. And at 60 miles an hour, that really raises havoc with the roads. That's one of the things that I've noticed. The other thing that I noticed when I was out there, I stopped and talked to some of the weigh people that do the weighing of the trucks, and to get a feel for how many trucks there are. So my estimation is pretty close. And I estimate, because of the information that I got from them, that they're going to triple and quadruple the number of trucks that run up and down that road within the next 3 or 4 years. They're printing money out there. They're making a lot of money. I know people that are in that business, and that's what they said. You know, they've got some information or some money tied up in machinery, but that's basically it. Like to have we've got a petition that we're circulating. I'm going to say within 4 or 5 hours, I probably have 50 people that have signed the petition, and all I've got to do, literally, is say Redwood Road petition noise, and they say, "Give me your pen." Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And I do encourage you to reach out to staff and give more of your comments so that they understand what it is that we're looking at, and the issues that you have, and some of the comments and ideas that you have as well.
We'd like your help. If we work together, I think we can solve. There's a lot of problems in Saratoga Springs.
All right.
Not just Redwood Road, and so let's work on a lot of those things.
That would be the idea. That'd be great. Thank you. Any other comments? Public comments? Okay, at this point, I'll close public comments then. And we'll move to our next agenda item. This is a public hearing for internal accessory dwelling unit map amendment for Jacobs Ranch, Plat S1, including Dunn Drive, Stetson Avenue, and Rowan Avenue. Title 19.20 IADU, Thomas and Kimberly Potts as applicants.
Well, good evening. And we do invite, if the applicant is here, they can come here if they would like. If they have any additional, if the commission has any additional questions. But yes, so this request is for Jacobs Ranch, Plat S Phase 1, and it is, there's no other IADU approved areas in Jacobs Ranch right now, so this would be the first one. Currently, there are four of the lots have homes. The rest are either under construction, and then there's a few that haven't started construction yet. And I believe there's currently about 4 of the homes that would most likely be registered for IADUs if this was approved. And just because we haven't had too many of these applications, just so you're aware, if they do get this approved, they still would need to do an IDU registration review as well to make sure that they have a separate entrance and those things. So even though like this would approve the area to have an IDU, but they would still need to get the house individually registered. And then here's the location regarding the current IAD map. And yeah, and that's kind of all that we have.
All right, thank you. And with the applicant, introduce himself, please, your name and where you're from.
Yes, sir. My name is Thomas Potts. I'm from here, Saratoga Springs. Lived here since 2007.
Would you like to add anything to the comments that were made or to the presentation?
No, that was all accurate.
All right, thank you for that. This is a public hearing, so at this point, I'd like to open up the podium to the public. If there are any comments that you would like to make, please come up. Okay, doesn't look like there is anyone who'd like to make comments here, so I'd close the public hearing. Have we received any comments?
Yeah. Okay. So as a resident of Jacobs Ranch, I know there are covenants and restrictions for this subdivision, which were recorded in Utah County. They state that this is a single-family only subdivision. The city is a signature on the recorded document. I would hate to see a precedent set by allowing part of Jacobs Ranch have ADUs. To me, by adding ADUs, the single-family neighborhoods now become duplex neighborhoods. I gave the community development director a copy of the recorded document. My question is, how can the city go against what they signed? I would ask that this item be tabled until a legal opinion be obtained.
Yes.
So we do have, and I'll take this opportunity to introduce our new Assistant City Attorney, Mr. Rulon Hopkins. And he is aware of this comment and has conferred with our city attorney, Kevin Thurman, regarding this comment. And I'll just turn some time over to him to address that.
Okay, I'd like to just hold that first. Usually we take all comments at first, and then that way you can address them all at once. Any other comments that we received from the public? Okay. At this point then, I was going to ask staff, but yeah, I'd like to ask our attorney to comment, if you would.
Yes, both Kevin and I yesterday, we received the comment and we reviewed the document that was cited by Steele. And then we reviewed state statute 10-9A-530, as well as the Saratoga City Code 19.20, which the city code is drafted after the state code. And that provides that the IADUs are permitted as long as the residential area is zoned for that. As well as addressing the document itself, which says that the covenant cannot change the neighborhood from a single dwelling unit, and the city code 19.20.02 subsection 4 states that a dwelling with an IAD shall be considered a dwelling single-family unit. So that addresses those concerns.
Okay, thank you for that. So at least from the legal aspect, it is allowed. And then there's also a process in the city for areas that have been designated as non-IAD for the applicants to present a petition. That's one of the ways. And then it comes up before the commission, and then we make a recommendation, and then it goes up to the city council. So there is a process in place. It's also in code as well. So that's the process that we're following today. Okay, given that there's no other public comments, I did close the public hearing. So I open up the discussion to the commissioners for your comments. Yeah, we'll have Commissioner Hill go first.
Sam, thank you for the completeness of your report. You know, as I read through the documents, it seems to me that all of the codes have been satisfied from a staffing perspective. And so I may have a question that could either, Thomas, you might be able to address it, or Sam. I saw everything to be in good shape, but the question that I have are the homes in this subdivision, do they have 3-car garages or 2-car garages, or is there a mixture?
I
I'll let you answer that.
get, I haven't specifically looked at every single house to see. Some of them haven't been started yet.
Okay.
But to the best of my recollection, the majority of them are 3 or 4-car garages.
Okay. And that was my question is, as I read, it looked to me that, all built out with the individual dwellings, it said that there'd be somewhere between 12 and 42 additional residences or people that might be living in the area. But it also said that there would be somewhere between 12 and 24 additional vehicles. And I live in a community that's newer, and almost all of the basements have additional dwelling units there. And the question to me is just parking. In tight quarters like you're in, parking becomes critical. And I hear this over and over again. Well, we've got 2 or 3 stalls in the garage, but so many people, it takes years for them to get their stuff acclimated into the home. And so sometimes the garages are not a parking place, 1 or 2 stalls are. And so I've seen, at least up in our neighborhood, that they put a parking pad. And I just wanted to ask the question, from a parking standpoint, how do you address that? And those that have signed the petition, because the last thing in the world you want is, no parking and skinny streets and that. So if you'd address that for me.
Of course. So something I didn't tell you is that I'm an employee of the city. I'm a police officer.
Okay.
I have your concern of the skinny streets and parking on the streets. I raised that with the fire chief years ago. However, in code, it requires an additional off-street parking stall. That doesn't specify whether it's garage or outside. For our home, we've already poured a pad that includes, if they wanted to, up to 2 or 3 cars, given the length of the pad. So it's already addressed in code. So if you were to approve the zoning change, when we apply individually as homes, it would be inspected to see if that additional pad was poured.
Yeah, to go along with that, when the IAD registration, when they complete that form, part of it is they show where the off-street parking will be. And then we review that to make sure that that is followed. But yeah, so they make sure they indicate where the off-street parking would be when they do the IAD registration.
And I also want to just point out, it's not a zoning change that we're making at this, we're just amending the IADU map. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, that's
I want to make it clear.
So all the code remains the same for that. We're just
Yes.
expanding that.
yeah, zoning will stay the same.
Right, because, and then the code itself allows for this. This is the process, so, yeah.
Well, in reading, I could see where you were addressing it, but not consistently, or I didn't read the code that would say that. So again, from my perspective, as I'm looking at the presentation, administratively, we're in line with the zoning and the codes and all that needs to happen. So that was the only question. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I just also wanted to remind the commissioners that this is a legislative action, so just to keep that in mind. And then Commissioner Spassi-Burns?
Yeah, so what exactly is this CC&Rs document then? Is this like an HOA agreement?
No, the document was a protected covenant that was signed as part of the master development agreement with the city, but it's also signed between buyer and seller. But the state code as well as the city code would supersede that.
Okay. So there's no HOA that oversees this property, correct?
No, so in this case, there is not an agent.
Okay. And then, I very much understand that the state has said that, IADs are happening and figure it out. So that leaves us, the cities, figuring it out, right? So it sounds like we have a process for making sure, like check off before we clear the house to be an IAD. But what, is there a fee that comes along with that for like any time a tenant changes, or how often are these being checked?
Yeah, so from my knowledge, it is a one-time fee. So if ownership changes from the home, the IAD will still be solidified. So the next owner will still be able to have it. There's just a one-time application fee, and when it's registered, we make sure we work with someone from the planning department will go to the home to do an inspection, or they'll work with the building inspectors and make sure that they have everything needed and that it meets everything. So when they go to register for it, that's when we do the inspection. So someone does visit to make sure that they meet all of those standards.
Okay, and then once they've met those standards, what does it take to get code enforcement out to do that check again? Just like a neighbor calling to complain?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, not necessarily. We have certain requirements that would be checked the first time, and if they met those requirements and they have an approved ADU, there shouldn't be a need to check it if the tenant changes. So we don't plan on checking again later, or we don't have anything in the code. The only time we go check in terms of code enforcement is if there's one that hasn't been approved. So if there's one that's approved, we wouldn't really go check it again.
Okay.
I can tell you from a law enforcement's perspective, we receive complaints regularly, sometimes substantiated, sometimes not, but we check everything. Now, code enforcement is separate from law enforcement, but we work closely with them as well. And as far as an approved IADU, we would still go check to make sure that they're not having off-street parking and other things that are covered by the code, and say that they have to live by those things.
Right. And as much as I appreciate you doing that, and, you know, during this time that you're living there, one, how are you going to enforce that? I mean, unless you're using like some threat that you shouldn't be, which I would hope you wouldn't. But two, what happens when you move? And then if there's no HOA that's overseeing it, then that leaves the city to oversee the on-street parking, which just, I don't have a problem with IAUDs, granny pods, whatever you want to call them. But my hang up is this piece where I'm kind of mad that the state is forcing us to, as a city, to enforce these rules that they're saying we have to have, right? And so we already have problems with on-street parking and traffic and all of that in the city. And this comment is probably more towards the city, is that maybe we need to consider putting something in there. But it sounds like if we don't have to go back to check anything once they're signed off, then really the only enforcement piece would just be the on-street parking. Okay. I guess I didn't really have a comment. I just had a ramble. Sorry.
Done? Any other comments? Okay, I'd like to make some comments then. Why did the city include the area, this particular area, in the 25% IADU prohibited zone? Do we remember why? Because there's 75% that's not prohibited, 25% is. Why is this area in there? Was there a particular?
Yeah, I think Ken will.
If you were involved in any of our reviews from the beginning, this came down, of course, as mandate from the state. And so previous to that, there were no areas in the city where an IAD could be approved. It was completely 100% illegal. But the state said that we needed to provide for areas in the city where they could be made legal and could be permitted. And so the city council, after their review, chose to do a minimal amount of areas that would be approved to meet the state standard. And so what that ended up doing was basically carving out those areas that were already developed, and those would be considered the area with which we could make them not permitted, and everything else, future development areas or new residential subdivisions that were being developed would be a permitted area. But over the last couple of years, we've had a few amendments to that. And so then, of course, that's regulated by code, the process that is going forward now. So it's just, there wasn't any specific reason why any area was designated not permissible. It was just part of the whole area of the city that was developed that previously was not permissible. And so now we're just cutting away at that little by little.
Okay. Yeah, I do remember that process, and it was, I don't know if it was necessarily painful, at least it's what you showed to us, but it probably was for
little
you.
bit.
Yeah, I could understand that, especially since it was, a lot of it was mandated. But I guess I just wanted it to be brought out brought out here so that those commissioners who were not part of that process understands that there was no, maybe there wasn't an actual like physical or any technical reason why this location was considered prohibited. And so if the applicants meet the, what's required, the requirements, then there wasn't any technical reason why the city wanted it to be prohibited. It was just part of the whole process, and then it was a development that was already under development. So that's really the only reason. Okay, so thank you for bringing that up. And then by removing this area from the prohibited zone, will the city consider adding other areas to maintain the 25% amount, or that's not necessary to do?
No, we don't plan on doing that.
Okay, all right. Well, those are all my questions then. Any other questions? Okay, I entertain motion.
If you have it pulled up, I don't have it pulled up.
I'd like to make a motion. So I move that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation for approval of the requested IADU map amendment for Jacob Ranch S, Phase 1, located on Glen Drive, and portions of Stetson Avenue, additions in the staff report.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Any questions to the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? And by the way, I was an aye as well. I forgot to vote. Okay, so the application unanimously passes. We recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let me clear everyone. Oh, I forgot to push the vote button too, so sorry about everybody's mics. I'll get it right next time. Okay, so we'll move to the next item on the agenda, also a public hearing. This is the amendments to Title 19 Land Development Code of the City of Saratoga Springs, Chapter 19.05, Supplementary Regulations. The proposed amendment would amend the distance from between bars, the DK, BK, DBA, the Break Sports Grill as applicant. All right, and this is also a legislative action as well. All right.
All right,
Hi.
good evening, commissioners. This is a similar part of code that we've just seen at Planning Commission a few weeks ago. But this time, the Break, a different applicant, is here to amend the code, the second part of the code that we hadn't touched before, that currently says that bars shall be located no less than a half mile from another bar. In this slide, I included the updated code that was adopted at City Council on Tuesday. So I'll have that updated for the council report, but I just got that approved language today. So the option the council chose to go with was to include both options for measurement from bar to residential, whichever is greater. So just so you're aware. So we will be updating the context of this particular amendment moving forward. The proposed code reduces that distance from a half mile to 1,000 feet from the closest part of one structure to the closest part of another structure. This was brought forward by the Break. As you can see, the location that they chose, which was in an existing approved multi-tenant building that was approved for restaurant and retail use, When they decided to go in as a bar, were made aware that there was already a bar going in at Bout Time, that location, that is approximately 1,400 feet away in this proposed manner of measurement. I also wanted to point out with the new code that was adopted, the 500-foot residential buffer or buffer to residential allows the Bout Time site. And from that site on the right-hand side, that shows a half-mile buffer that the current code would allow. In this regional commercial area, that only leaves 2 parcels that are zoned regional commercial that would allow a bar, which is the Wiggy Wash site and the liquor store site. So they're already developed sites. So that was just something I pulled from the last report that relates to this site as well. And with that, I'll turn this item over to you for questions.
Okay, is the applicant here?
Yes.
Okay, would the applicant please come up to the podium or to the desk there? And let me make sure it's turned on. Okay. Could you please introduce yourselves for the record?
My name is Kimberly Wiseman.
And your address, please?
The folder address? Or
Just your business address.
Oh, 127 Lake Drive.
All right, thank you.
And
Would you
I'm
like- oh, go ahead.
Ryan Oliver.
All right, thank you. Would you like to add anything to the presentation? Any comments?
Do you, how deep do you want me to add right now? Or do you want me to wait till you ask me questions about it?
If you
I can
have
go.
something you want to say, go ahead and say it, and then we'll also ask you questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess there just needs to be a little knowledge on the city side of the difference between a bar establishment. Are you waiting for me? Okay. Between a bar establishment, which is what we're requesting a liquor license for, we have to get local consent from the city in order to do that, which Bout Time currently is.
Excuse me, could you bring the mic a little bit closer? Because
Yep.
this is being recorded. Thank you.
Nope, you're good. That's where I was. So currently Bout Time is holding local consent. We can't get local consent because we're within a half a mile. When we signed our lease in March of 2021, that half mile wasn't there. We weren't aware of it until we went in November to apply for our local consent and we're told we could not get local consent. So I guess we have a lot of concerns with at what point are you going to release local consent if Bout Time still isn't under construction? We're hoping to open here in a few months. We're getting framed in the next couple weeks here. So there's lots that goes into it that we have unanswered questions to. I don't see any other regional commercial business that can't be close to another like business. Olive Garden and Chili's are near each other. You have multiple gyms going in near each other. You have gas stations going in near each other. Why is a 21-plus bar being singled out? I guess is my question. Do you have?
No, and as far as the, Olive Gardens and Chili's, I mean, they're serving the same stuff that we're serving. We have a full menu. We sell just as much food as we do, alcohol and beer. Chili's, Olive Garden, those type of places sell the same stuff as we're selling, but yet they're, next to one another, and then there's this buffer between these. So we're just trying to get some clarification.
All right, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I was able to pull up your.
Yeah, I did. I don't know if you guys do they have access to this before right now? Okay, so I did make a little slide you can go through. This will be our 5th location. Airport's also coming soon. They're looking at doing 14 different airports nationwide. So you can kind of click through the next one there. Just to point out that most bars, we do have requirements on food to alcohol sales. Most of the locations right now are pretty close to 40, almost 50% in food sales. So we're pretty close to what a limited restaurant liquor license would have, and also what a full restaurant, which is like your Chili's and Applebee's. Sorry, Applebee's, that's old school. Your Chili's and Olive Gardens are gonna be, so you have, it's pretty close to that. We do sell a lot of food. We're not just sitting there pounding out liquor, and I know that it's scary to think about, oh, it's a bar. There's 3 differences between a bar establishment license and a full restaurant license, which is your Olive Gardens, your Chili's. And those 3 differences are we can't hire minors, shocking, and then, which is fine. Yes, we don't need 16-year-olds. So that's one big difference. Also, you can't walk around with your drink. So if I go into the break at South Jordan, I can go play pool and take my drink, set it down, go take a shot at the pool table, set my drink down. I can wander around the pool table with my drink. If I go to Olive Garden and I put my name on the waiting list and I go to the bar and I order a drink, I have to be escorted from an employee to go take my drink to the dining room. But I can still walk with my drink to the dining room table. And the third one is escaping my brain, sorry. Let me go to my notes. Oh, sorry. So the third one is the time difference that we can be open. So a bar license 21 plus can be open from 10 a.m. to 1 a.m. The difference between that and a full restaurant license is they have to open at 11:30 in the morning to serve liquor or 10:30. So we open at 11 during the week, but on the weekends open at 10. So really it's a half-hour difference that we're able to serve more than Olive Garden would. Sorry, you can click through. Oh, there's some food, different food. We're happy if any of you want to come stop by any of our locations, happy to show you the difference of menu. This is just showing current city code prior to what was just adjusted for about time since their location has changed a few times now. Showing the distance between the two. Obviously, we're diagonal across intersections. But again, you're not requiring, I mean, you have Old Navy and other stores right next to each other in regional Taco Bell and Wendy's. They can sit next to each other, but you can't have. And with Saratoga set up the way it is, there's only so much area you guys have for your regional commercial that we can go into. Even down on Ring Road, there's a little section you had pulled up. There's a church right there. So state code, we have to be 200 feet from it. So this is your major crossroad in and out of your city. That Eagle Mountain, Cedar Valley, anything back to Stockton, they're driving through, and that's a major intersection that they can be stopping at our location and having a beer and a burger. This is just a list of different cities and what they do. Draper, they have more of a zoning system where they only allow 8, but then there's so many per zone. So if you go to Draper, you will get your Leatherheads, your Donkey Tails, they're all in that same zone. They're not spread amongst their city. Harriman, they don't have a distance from one another. They only have the 1 per 4,000 population, which is 60. I don't know what just happened. There's a 60,000, so they could technically have 15 in their city if they wanted to, according to their code at the moment. 600 feet, which is pretty standard among some of those cities. That 600 feet pops up a lot. Sandy City has no distance location. West Jordan didn't have any. South Jordan doesn't have any. If you want to go to the next one. Oh.
No, it's fine.
This was interesting to me also because 21 plus bar licenses right now, Salt Lake County, there's 224. All of Salt Lake County. Utah County, which is almost 3 times the land space, there's only 14. So we're talking Spanish Fork, everywhere. There's 14. That's insane to me personally. I found that shocking. Then most of them, and then I have the Utah code listed up there, which basically 200 feet from residential, from a church, from a school, which we would be safe from that over in this area that we're looking at. And then you guys, this is your map, you know it. That red section, obviously, with about time changing where they are, that really doesn't open up much for us to go into. That ring road down at the bottom is not really an option. And this is just telling you your crossroads intersection, major intersection in and out and through for a lot of residents of Eagle Mountain and Cedar Valley.
That's it.
That's it. So
right.
That's a lot, sorry.
No, that's all right. Thank you. That gives us a lot of context as well. So appreciate, especially on your position as well. Thank you for that. So this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open up the forum to the public. If you'd like to make any comments, please come up. This one here. Okay, doesn't look like we have any comments from the public, at least here. And then do we have any, have we received any? None. Okay. All right, so I will close public hearing and I will open up to the commission. Commissioner Hill?
Thank you for your presentation and that additional information. It gives some real good context to us. As I read this, again, Tippy, thank you for the completeness. It answered all my questions, and to me, city staff supports. It's all within the administrative with the codes and everything the way it needs to. I only had 2 questions, and the first one is just because I'm newer to the commission and to the city, but Tippy or Sarah, can you tell me why originally we went with the half mile distance? Was that just something that they talked about at that time, or was there a rationale behind that?
The code isn't that old, and I actually don't know the history. I apologize. I just actually don't know. It was processed by David Stroud. He was the director before me, and I wasn't in attendance when it went through. So I'm not aware. I do know we have a few other uses, as the applicant mentioned. Some uses don't have distance spacing and some do. We have a distance spacing on a few things in our code: storage units, check cashing and receiving, check cashing or payday loan kind of thing, and then car washes. And the car wash we put in to avoid an abundance of them. Same thing with storage units. As a city, we don't want too many. So I actually don't know the exact reason behind it.
Okay. I just wanted to get a kind of a sense of where that, if there was a real reason why we did the half a mile at one.
The main reason for any distance spacing is the number, so you don't get a lot of them. However, that's really up to, your evaluation, whether that's appropriate or not, and to make a recommendation to the city council. From a staff perspective, we're very neutral. This isn't really our decision, so we're very neutral.
Right. Well, being a quasi-judicial, I'll have to go to council. The last question I have, and I think I know the answer as I've read, but this is only in the regional commercial zoning, correct, that we're dealing with this?
Right.
And so we have limited numbers of those, and so in reality, it's not like we're opening up a slew of opportunity. It's in these designated areas, and I appreciate when we look at Salt Lake County and Utah County, we don't have a overabundance of this. And so the more I read, the more I thought about it, I felt comfortable. So thank you for your thorough presentation, Tippy. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Commissioner Sprosty Burns?
Yeah, thank you. So with this change or this potential change, how many potential lots are even left available for another bar to go into?
Yeah, so that's a great question. With the change and with the distance to residential as it is, this would only allow the break in addition to whatever was allowed previously.
Okay, and if the requirement was removed for between bar to bar and it was just a residential, how much more space does that really realistically have?
Yeah, Sarah, can you put the arrow back? This is pretty much the biggest area that would allow for more than one. I think we went into detail a little more with council on the last code amendment related to bars. There are about five regional commercial areas in the city, 4 along Redwood Road and 1 that's UDOT property that's going to be SR 73 south of Wildflower. And the 2 little pods of regional commercial in the general plan and the zoning map could allow for 1, maybe 2 with the distance from bar to bar. There's one on the very north end, close to 2100, and then there's one by Alpine Hills on that south end, just a little bit south of there. Those are very narrow, so they would only be allowed 1 on the east side in each of those areas of Redwood Road. And then the regional commercial to the south by Ring Road, it's just the only area outside of the buffer is the fire station that's over there. It's city-owned property. So this would be the only other area that we'd see anymore, even without the bar-to-bar. So just those 2 pods of regional commercial to the north and this outside this buffer area here.
Okay. I'm going to just very strongly state my opinion on this, which is that we should remove fully the requirement to have a distance between two bar establishments. I think that we can look at the science behind that and know that it is people who are drinking frequently go from one bar to another. There's whole designations of bar hopping that happens. So having this distance actually becomes more dangerous for our citizens to have people who have been drinking moving from one establishment to another with a bigger distance. So that is my statement on it. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Is that it, Commissioner? Okay. Any other comments? Okay, then I'd like to make my comments then. I always lose my place here. Okay, so I was going to ask about the half-mile separation distance, but Commissioner Hill already asked that question. And I was going to ask, how does it compare to other cities in the regional commercial zones? But I think the applicant actually provided a lot of that information, which I thought was very helpful. And it was interesting in that there's really no necessarily, at least in the examples that you gave, a particular way to do it. You know, there's just different ways to do it. And so ours is not necessarily correct, nor is it necessarily wrong. It's just what we choose to use. It's a tool. I also, okay, some of my own personal comments. I learned in a business stats course that I took once that similar, I always wondered, why do businesses tend to cluster? You know, why do you have a mile of cars, and why do you, why do you have a lot of clothing stores all in one area? Turns out that there's an actual, it's almost human nature, but there is a similar business increase, or similar businesses increase in economic activity when they cluster. It just turns out to work that way. When they cluster together in a location, and increases competition because they try to stand out from each other, as well as specialization, which both benefits the customers. So I don't think that, so there is an economic reason, or maybe a human nature reason, why businesses tend to cluster, and so it's not a bad idea to have them together or close by in location. I also lived in Japan and Germany, where bars are separated by tens of feet as opposed to thousands of feet, and for centuries with no issues. Their drunks tend to handle themselves better than ours. I don't know, but certainly the distance between the bars are not an issue. It's just culture or human behavior. That's the issue, and we have law enforcement to help with that. They did for local residents, whether for people who frequent the bars, or for the local residents, because a lot of residences in Germany and Japan, where the bars are located, the residents are above the building, and the residents don't have necessarily a major issue with that, at least for centuries. Saratoga Springs is not Tokyo, and it's not it's not Berlin, it's not Munich. We understand that, but at least we do know that it's not necessarily the location of these bars that could be a problem. So at least that's what I think. So I think we could tolerate a separation of a parking lot. I do want to also ask, I do want to mention also in the staff packet, I want to thank the applicants for using our city's own plan for economic development and comments from the public to strengthen. You had pictures in there of comments from the public to strengthen your case for the amendment. So it's nice to throw that back at us, our own mirror.
Well, yeah, from that breakfast you guys had, a lot of people were mentioning they want the breweries, they want the bars, they want the options. You guys are looking to put a Daybreak-like area out here, and the break in Daybreak has been there day one. There's car shows, there's movies, there's concerts, and everybody knows the break's there. Can the kids go in there? No, but the parents can stop in, go next door to the bakery that was there, go get coffee or other beverages at other places. But we've just putting our Facebook page out there. I've had Cedar Valley High School reach out for banner support for their field. We're known in the community for Harriman High School, so those are all things that we will continue to do out here, surrounding cities and Saratoga. So we're not just some big scary bar in Utah. Right. And I will say, I know with competition, About Time is a franchise, and The Break is now starting to franchise. And so in Utah, what other two bars do you see that's owned by the same company or the same owner. You have a bar named Sue that has 2 locations, and I can't recall of another one that has 2 locations. We're looking at 5. Breweries? Yeah, breweries, but actual 21-plus bars. I can't recall of any besides About Time and now The Break, who will be this, like I said, will be the 5th location.
Okay, well, thank you, and thank you for that as well. So by highlighting our findings on the city residents' retail gap, about the retail gap in our spending, and linking it to the vision board comments from residents, wanting more social clubs, breweries, and bars is inspired. I think that was a good way of showing that to us. And I also just want to make a comment that I can't drink. I have an alcohol allergy, so it's not like I want more bars. It's not, these comments are just based on where I lived, what I've seen, and what you've presented. So I just want to say that.
And we have non-alcoholic options as well.
Oh, yeah,
so
exactly.
You can still come and have macaroni and cheese.
Right. But the other thing is, when I visited my nephew in Brooklyn, he lives in a very walkable, it's one of those, what do you call it, brownstone neighborhoods. And just right across the street is where some of the retail stores and restaurants and such. And it was kind of like a bar hopping, but it was all walkable because everything's close by. And even though I don't drink, I had a great time because like you said, the bars do, even though like it's a cocktail bar or something, but they also serve a lot of food. And they're kind of like tapas style, or, smaller dishes. Some places are like that. And there's just a lot of variety. And as an adult, it was just a lot of fun. And so I thought, so again, even though I don't drink, I still appreciate the diversity that your establishments bring to the city. So that's another comment. And then I was also going to ask why 1,000 feet? Why not 500 feet or something else?
I'd prefer 0 as well myself, but it was just proposed from our attorney as an option to kind of meet in the middle, basically. Like can you still keep a distance? Yes, but does it need to be a half a mile when you have such limited space? In that red area, you have 2.25 miles wide, and then barely missing a half a mile from north to south. So there wasn't, there's not a lot of option there anyways, but.
Right. Well, because I was just thinking that if you bring the request for 1,000 feet, then you can, get your local license and establishment. What about the next application? Would they then come in and say, can we reduce it to 500? But I think with Commissioner Spassi-Burns' question, there really aren't. I appreciate the city's interest in also being able to limit or at least control the number of certain types of establishment. I get that. So that is important. But at the same time, it doesn't look like there's going to be much room anyway, even if we did drop it down to, say, 500 feet or eliminated it completely. So I think just the availability of regional commercial is already a limit to growth. It's already like a cap. Am I right, or is that not necessarily the case?
Yeah, that sounds right to me without looking at the maps.
Okay, because I thought, well, maybe actually we could have like 500 of them.
With the way your regional commercial backs up to your residential areas, even your state code's 200 feet from churches, which it's Utah, so you're almost covered with just churches.
Right.
But that regional commercial area just protects it even more because you guys have it so limited that way.
Okay. Well, I think since you did request 1,000 feet, and that's what's before us, and rather than us saying, okay, we need to table this so we can figure out whether we should do 500 or what, rather than that, I think we should just, at least my position on it is that, yeah, let's go with that. And then if another similar establishment comes in and says, let's make it 500, then we could consider it at that time. But at least that way the city still has some control or whatever reason it was that we put that half mile restriction in there in the first place. So at least that's my feeling on it.
Co-chair, I would support that also. We've got it down. We've had the discussion around that 1,000 feet. But if someone else were to come in at a later date, I think we're on top of it enough to be able to address it at that point. So I'm one that would support the 1,000 feet at this point.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? No. Okay. Then I'm willing to entertain let me open this vote thing. There we go. A motion.
I'll make a motion. I move that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation that the City Council approve the proposed amendment to Title 19 with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second. And then any questions to the motion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Oh, aye. All those against? Okay, the motion passes. We'll make a positive recommendation. Thank you for all your work and
Thank you.
everything you've done. Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
I cancel all of them.
And success, you guys.
I don't know how to turn all of them off. Okay, so we'll move to the next agenda item. Are we good? It's been less than an hour, so. Okay, so the next agenda item is the Wildflower Village Plan 5, located approximately at Marigold Drive and Chianti Street. Elizabeth Cole as applicant. Okay. Oh.
Good evening, Commissioners. I will actually present the next two items together. They are very interrelated, if that's okay. We have the Wildflower Village Plan 5, and then the Community Plan Major Amendment. It's a major amendment because it changes some development standards, but it's just a few pages that goes with Village Plan 5. So in the Wildflower Community Plan, it has very limited information and standards for the Type 5 commercial development. This here on the bottom left-hand side of the screen shows two of the commercial villages, Village 5 and Village 6, that are allowed in Wildflower. And on the right-hand side, this area is allowed for community commercial, regional commercial, business park, and office warehouse zones. And in the little blurb on the top left of the screen, this comes again from the community plan. This was approved as long as the locations of these uses and restrictions are determined during the village plan review. We had a city council work session to discuss the way to potentially do this. Initially, when this application was first submitted, villages 5 and 6 were going to be one large village plan, and instead they chose to keep it separate. Village 5 and 6 will be two separate village plans, so we're only looking at the one on the northernmost side of this area. As such, and with the direction that we received as staff from the City Council work session on the applicant is proposing that all of this developable property in Village 5 be designated with the office warehouse zone. So Wildflower was vested in the 2019 Land Development Code. So at that time, we didn't have our heavy commercial zone yet. We only had office, warehouse, and business park. So they are having to go by that previous code and standards that we had in 2019. Currently, we don't have any properties that can be zoned for office warehouse. We've discontinued that zone. Only properties that have been vested in previous code are allowed to use this. So as such, there are some things that were problematic with definitions and ways that we try to break down uses in the office warehouse zone that resulted in the heavy commercial zone. And some of them here, the applicant has proposed only 3 exceptions to that code to try to address some of those issues. So that's the definition of light manufacturing. They wanted to specify that custom manufacturing is also defined as made-to-order items. They wanted to add and clarify in the office warehouse flex use definition. So it was the office warehouse code that also had an office warehouse use, so that's why it kind of got a little complicated in there. But they wanted to specify that what light manufacturing actually allows as a use in that zone. So it wasn't completely clear. It just changed 1 or 2 words. I think just adding that warehouse uses are allowed. In the past, we didn't specify how much of an office warehouse building had to be office and how much had to be warehouse. So it tries to address that there. And then the last thing they're requesting is the height. The office warehouse zone allowed buildings up to 35 feet. They're requesting 40 feet, which is allowed in the heavy commercial zone. This overall village plan is just under 58 acres. 4.66 acres are designated as common open space for the Wildflower community. This is along mostly the trail corridors and detention basins in this area, but each buildable lot will still have their 20% open space as required in all commercial zones in the city, all non-residential zones. This is their proposed conceptual site plan that they included in the village plan, just so you can see. They have 4 proposed medium-sized development lots based on this definition they proposed. For Wildflower, we'll see anywhere from 30,000 to 230,000 square foot buildings. What they're proposing for Village 5 specifically is 123 to just under 170,000 square feet. And then the parcel to the northeast just doesn't have a building proposed at this time. To go along with this village plan, we also have this major amendment 4, where it just establishes a new grading criteria. So in the appendix of the Wildflower Community Plan, there's an attachment that we worked on with Planning Commission and Council over several work sessions on the grading criteria. We did not have the hillside ordinance in place at the time. We do have the hillside ordinance in place now, which does allow cuts and fills up to 25 feet. So they've just carved out a commercial area. It previously wasn't an agricultural general development area for grading, and just said that in order to build developable building lots, they're allowed to have up to 25 feet cut and fill, and to allow some of that steep slopes within the building lots. In the rest of Wildflower, we've specified that steep slopes that are being created cannot be in a residential lot. So where this is commercial, and this is being updated to kind of match more of the existing hillside ordinance, staff was okay with that. I also wanted to note, though, I did just note today that the boundaries in the community plan for Village 5 is a little bit different than what was in the community plan. So I also wanted to make a request, if you choose to incorporate it into your motion, that this exhibit on the bottom left be updated to reflect the boundaries of the proposed Village 5, between 5 and 6. All right, and we do have the applicant here today, Elizabeth Cole.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Cole with the Wadsworth Development Group. I'm here representing the owners of the Wildflower Commerce Center, and we have our master engineer from LEI Engineering here with us tonight in case there are specific questions about the details on the technical side. Primarily, I wanted to thank the staff, engineering, public works, planning, for taking this very long journey with us. We initially submitted our village plan a little over a year ago, was our first submittal. It's been a long road, but I think that we have arrived at something that really is a win-win. This site has significant geographic and topographic challenges. Very difficult to develop, very costly to develop, but I sincerely believe that we've come up with a plan that fulfills the vision of the city, the vision of us as a developer, and that we've created something that we can continue to work together on. So I'm here to answer questions for you.
Thank you for that. I'm sorry, did you say your name and where you're from? I was
Yes.
writing, okay. All right. I thought you did, but, all right,
Okay.
thank you. This is a public hearing, so I'd like to open up the forum to the public. If you'd like to make any comments or make any comments. So you're welcome to come up to the podium if you have any comments to make. Nope, okay. Oh, nope, okay. Did we receive any comments from the?
We did not.
Okay, all right. So I will close public hearing then at this time. Thank you. And I open it up to the commissioners. Okay, sorry, I didn't see who went first, but we'll go with Commissioner Wilden.
Oh, thank you. I really like this plan. I found it really a challenge to understand it. Being fairly new, I had to read through it several times, and my wife had to wake me up once. But I love it, thank you. I had two concerns that I wish I had been like Jim, that he goes up and he drives around and he checks it all out, and I didn't do that. So by raising the height to 48 feet, is that going to cause any problems with view for other people and other lots near it? I should be able to know that by going. Do you see an issue with raising the heights for other people's view?
No, if it were developing outside of the planned community zone, it would be zoned heavy commercial, and that would allow for the same heights.
Great. The other concern I had is that how close are we to other, I can kind of see that we're somewhat close to other residences or residential neighborhoods, and allowing light manufacturing, is that going to create some noise and some challenges down the line, being that it's so close to some neighborhoods?
Yeah, I believe our definition of light manufacturing allows internal manufacturing, so there would be no business on the outside structure.
Correct.
Yeah. So the intent was in the previous code that wouldn't be an external nuisance.
Great. Thank you very much. That's all.
All right, thank you. And then Commissioner Hill.
Well, thank you for your site plan and everything. I think that was 100 pages or 80 pages, and I looked through that, and I read a good portion of that. I'm excited. Number one, the views that you guys are going to have up in there are going to be phenomenal. It's going to showcase the valley. I like that we're using land that has terrain, because lots of times you don't build on that because it costs. You know, when you look at any of these dig outs and you're looking at 20, 25 feet, that all has to be engineered, you know, that has to be structurally the way it is. A couple of things. So thank you. And then Tippy, again, thank you. This was very complex. Much like Doug, you know, I said, where do I start? But it's very complex. But the information was there if you had the time to really delve into it. I mentioned to Sarah at the very beginning, because we have so many members on the commission that are new, there's a process when you have a concept plan such as Wildflower. You have to have changes along the way, and that's why we have the amendment. So Sarah, if you could just kind of update us a little bit of that process, because sometimes when you say major amendments, you know, it's like, oh, you know, and a couple of months ago, we had somebody come to us with, I think, the Fifth Amendment, and that wasn't as, how do I say it? It was to their needs as far more than this is for the total development and for the coming together. So Sarah, could you just update us? That would be helpful to me, and I know it'd be helpful to some of us that are newer on the commission.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I don't think my mic's on yet. Am I good? Okay, great, I'd be happy to. One of the things, so we have seen a few use the amendment process to ask for forgiveness related to fencing and other topics. This particular situation is different. The original owner and developer of the master plan, they're not commercial developers, and so they had always intended that somebody else would be purchasing this from them. And now that has occurred, this commercial developer has seen a need for some changes. We don't see this as asking for forgiveness. We see this as a more informed development of the plan.
Great, that just gives some context, and I just wanted to make sure that we have that on record as we're going through this. Again, as I read the report, Tippy, that staff is in agreement that all of the changes, the code changes, are appropriate, and they're being fulfilled the way they need to. I read a couple of things with real intent in the report. I went to the traffic impact study, which was a very detailed, that went out, I think it was to 2040, and showed the impact that traffic would have, the commercial aspect, and it showed that it was covered. You know, and so I felt really comfortable. The one question that I would ask is, with the Amendment 4 and some of the grading changes there, and being able maybe to have larger building and structure. Does that impact the traffic impact study that was done November 22? Would that need to be updated? I personally, as I looked, it went out far enough that it wouldn't, but, you know, I don't know specifically what this Amendment 4 will do to increasing some of the building sizes and the impact of traffic. So I'd like that to be.
Yeah. So when we did the rezone and did the amended and restated Wildflower Community Plan, we went from this whole area that you see, Village 5 and 6. It was previously just regional commercial zoned. It was a part of Wildflower, but not a part of the community plan. It was just going to follow city code, to potentially having community commercial, regional commercial, business park, and office warehouse. So I believe if that was done after 2020, then it should have accounted for that. I know we've had some discussions on where the regional commercial and business park allocation should go, but where we're only doing Village 5 at this time, I think that we'll see a lot more variation and smaller lot sizes in Village 6, potentially.
Okay. The other area that I read with real intent was drainage. Because when you have as much asphalt there, you know, the drainage aspects, and when you're changing the, you know, the slopes can be pretty significant, and the drainage, but to my reading, it seemed that that was being addressed, that that wasn't going to be a concern. So I might just go over to Jeff, you know, if you're on top of, you know, you always have to be a little concerned about the drainage. Because I was reading their report as compared to reading staff's report. Just some thoughts from there.
Yeah, the whole Wildflower development, in particular Village 5, has an extensive stormwater infrastructure and engineered system to be able to accommodate any runoff that's there. And of course, they'll be held to all engineering standards when they develop their site. So that includes stabilization of any disturbed areas, proper geotechnical reports, and engineering associated with their grading activities.
Great. I just wanted to address that. Again, let me just reiterate how excited I am looking at having experts come in to do the commercial piece. Your company has the expertise to do that. And again, location, and doing it right is so critical. So that's the only question that I have. Chair.
All right, well, thank you, Commissioner Hill. Any other comments from the commissioners? All right, I'd like to make some comments. And also, I just wanted to point out, the agenda had separate items as for the Wildfire Village Plan and for the Wildfire Community Plan. To be presented it in the way the staff packet shows it. And so just something to keep in mind that there are two motions two actions to consider. One is the village plan recommendation for approval. That is a administrative action.
Oh, they're both legislative recommendations to the council. Yeah, so village plans and community plans essentially are writing new code for this community. So anything with the planned community zone means we reference the community plan and village plan first, and then anything that is not in those documents or development agreements then will default to Title 19 and our regular code standards. So it's kind of a complicated beast, but because this is essentially writing the development standards for this area, it's all legislative.
Okay, terrific. So we have two issues to consider, or two applications to consider. One is the village plan, which is legislative, and then the other is the code amendment, which is also legislative. So we will be doing two motions with this. Okay.
Which on that exhibit is updated to match proposed plan? Is that under 4 or 5?
The community plan.
That was under, yeah.
And is that, sorry, community plan is 4, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Is that good?
Sorry, I wanted to cut down on the number of pages. That would have been a lot of duplicate information.
No, that makes sense. Okay, so my question's on what page is that? Sorry. I use the, there's a, so my paging must be wrong. There's a paragraph 9, additional elements, and the finding was can comply for the additional elements. So I was wondering what that was. 9. And why don't I have that page? It's one of the only can complies.
Oh, I think that must have said, I probably missed updating that to complies. Just no changes are being proposed in those pages.
Okay, that's good. I can't even find the page. All right, and then is city engineering expecting any issues with this development going forward with respect to the sewer service bottlenecks as mentioned in paragraph 2 of the engineering report?
Yeah, currently there is a bottleneck, but it's progressing pretty quickly, and by the time that these sites roll around, it won't be an issue anymore.
Okay.
But regardless of that, they are still required to fill out our sewer capacity waiver so that they're aware of the issue, and that if they want to proceed forward before the bottlenecks are resolved, there's a process that they would have to follow to do that.
Okay, so you feel pretty comfortable that it'll be fine?
Yeah.
Okay, terrific, thank you. So I think you've answered this already, TP, but does the city staff have any issues with the exceptions requested? So the definition of light manufacturing, should this be added to the city code, I wonder?
Oh, no, we changed all of these definitions and the standards that go with them when we established the heavy commercial zone. So, and when we deactivated the office warehouse zone, for lack of a better word.
Okay, so we're good with that. Okay, and then the office warehouse flex definition to include single-use building. Also, do we need, because right now it doesn't say anything about single-use building? And the request is to add that in there. Should we add that to the city code as well?
I think that was the previous definition of flex and office warehouse, where it required multiple tenants, but it didn't have any standards as to what or how. So a single-use building would be allowed in the heavy commercial zone, so that's what staff went with.
Okay, so it's already okay because the code changed. Okay. And then the office warehouse, I think you answered this already. Office warehouse building height already addressed in the current code, right? So that's already addressed, okay. And then the community plan grading criteria, what is that?
So we didn't have our hillside ordinance, that's an entire chapter of Title 19, adopted at the time the community plan was being amended and restated. So we came up with grading criteria, pulling from the elements like the terracing of retaining walls and certain standards where there's a maximum height change of 10 feet that you can have for a retaining wall, things like that. We just pulled those from our draft ordinance for the hillside standards and put them into an attachment to the master development agreement and community plan. So the proposed updates here are in line with what we did end up approving in the hillside ordinance.
Terrific. All right, thank you for that. Okay, that's it for my comments. Anybody else? Nothing else? Okay, so I will entertain a motion.
I can do it. Sure.
I have a motion that I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for Wildflower Village Plan 5, located approximately at Malgo Drive in Chinada?
Chianti.
Pretty close. Based on the following findings and subjects to the following conditions. And we have 4 findings and we have 5 conditions.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Wilden. Okay, any questions of the motion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Okay, so the application passes, and then opening for the second motion.
I'll go ahead with that one. I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the major amendments to the Wildflower Community Plan located at approximately, oh Lord, Chiatani?
Chianti.
Chianti.
Chianti, yeah.
And Marigold Road, based on The conditions and findings listed in the staff report, and with the added finding that the exhibit is updated to match the proposed plan. We don't know what exhibit it is, though.
The village plan exhibit.
Okay. The village plan exhibit is updated to match the proposed plan.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Commissioner Wilden will second. Thank you. Any questions to the motion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? All right, thank you. The motion passes again unanimously. Thank you very much to the applicants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so are we okay to continue? I think we're getting close.
let's-
Okay. All right, so let's go to the next item on the agenda. It's also a public hearing. It's amendments to Title 19 Land Development Code of the City of Saratoga Springs, Chapters 19.02, Definitions 19.04, Establishment of Land Use Zones, and Official Map 19.6, Site and Architectural Design Standards. And I think this is city initiated.
Yes, this is city initiated.
All right, thank
Good
you.
evening, commissioners. I have a sneak peek in here for you. So we are proposing some code changes that are related to processing our city hall design and plans that will be coming to you very soon. This one is in addition to our definitions for municipal building and facility. We did not have that in the code. We want to add some exceptions that are specific to this use and not to anything else. And then we are proposing an increase in the height in this zone. We are proposing a maximum of 75 feet in the institutional civic zone. And then we are proposing some exceptions to the location of storage areas, trash enclosures, and loading areas. And we are just proposing 2 sections of code do not apply to municipal buildings. And then here's the sneak peek. So I don't know if any of you were able to attend the open house we had the last 2 days. If you did, you were able to see some of these some of these elevations and some of the materials that are being proposed. So this is just one elevation, and you can see the loading area, and I'll show it in the site plan as well, and then I'll show why we're requesting this. The height, this is proposed to be a 4-story building. The main floor will consist of the library and the entrance to City Hall, and then the upper floors will consist of city office buildings and also some space that we'll be able to lease for some county services. This is the conceptual site plan at this point. You'll actually see you'll see the formal site plan packet item at your next meeting. So you're just getting a quick sneak peek so that I could explain these code requests. So what you're seeing in the upper right corner is the loading area, and right now the code says you can't have that between the building and the street. The front of the building is not that side. The front of the building is facing left, which is facing, in the city, that would be facing west, which is facing Patriot Park. And then the parking lot that you're seeing will be between the police public safety building, and then this will be a new parking lot, and then you'll have the library and City Hall. And so the loading area that's being proposed will allow for book drop-off. It will allow for recreation, pickup and drop-off, jerseys and equipment and things like that. And it will allow any deliveries the city needs. We get quite a few packages and deliveries. We get delivery trucks daily, so that will keep them out of the parking lot and keep them, away from. A lot of times they just park in the middle of the parking lot and they're blocking parking stalls. So this will be a designated area where we can receive deliveries. And then we'll also have trash removal in that location. There will be a dumpster that's by a screened wall and then also by vegetation. And that is the reason for the proposed code amendments. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. This is a public hearing, so I'm opening up the forum to anybody in the public who would like to make any comments. Okay, did we receive any comments from the public? Nope, thank you. Okay, so I'll close public hearing then at this time and open it up to the commissioners. Commissioner Rossy Burns.
Sarah, so that delivery zone will have like a spot for the book drop? And then can kids get in and out of the car there and like go inside? Or this is just like a book drop and then the rest of it is like professional delivery zone?
Right, if you did want to go inside the building, you wouldn't go in at the location.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, I think I just had one question. So why shouldn't the screening code apply to, or wait, did I say that right? Why shouldn't it apply to municipal buildings, especially since I thought they were mostly for aesthetics and not function? Or am I wrong?
We actually will be screening it. It would be completely screened. This has more to do with the public rights of way, so just that last sentence where you can't have it between the public right of way and the building.
Okay.
So where it says screening shall, oh wait, sorry, let me.
Yeah,
let me
I'm
step
looking
back.
I'm looking at paragraph 5A, where it says, screening shall block views to these areas from on-site as well as from public rights of way and adjacent properties. This does not apply to municipal buildings. So if it's talking about blocking views, and then we're saying we don't need to do that for the municipal.
Oh, I apologize, we are doing that. Oh, sorry, it's because we do have, this is only related to the, oh, I don't know, sorry, now I'm confused myself. I thought there was something in here we needed an exception to, but not the whole thing, obviously. So we are fully screening it with materials that match the building. And, okay, hold on.
So it's the only thing you want to exempt municipal buildings from is the public rights of way requirement there?
It's the loading area, but it's not technically a dock. But there is like a loading, a bigger door. There is one of those roll-up doors.
Yeah.
So that area won't be screened because it will need, a truck to be able to pull in there, and we'll need to be able to open a bigger door.
But there wouldn't be a screening requirement for a dock like that or a loading area like that anyway, right? Or would there?
Well, usually there is, yes.
Okay. So then why would the municipal building be different?
Generally, when we see a commercial site, they're not oriented the way that the municipal building is oriented. We're orienting the front of the building towards the park. And we don't normally run into this where commercial buildings or office spaces are orienting towards a park and they don't have another location to put a loading area. So that's the struggle we're having. If we were to put the loading area on the other side, we're putting it on the front. Generally, we require the front to be the street side, and we do this elevation is the street side, so you'll see that it's a very nice elevation, but the front doors are on the other side and face the park. And so if we were to, let me go to the site plan. When you look at the site plan as a whole, in the future, we're hoping that we'll have just north of the parking lot and east of the building, we're hoping that will be an amphitheater. So we don't really have another spot when you look at the whole site to place the loading area.
No, yes.
I think Sarah explained it very well, but I think also we need to keep in mind that municipal buildings are not always the same as a commercial building in its need and its use and function. And especially, as Sarah pointed out, how this is oriented towards the park and the future amphitheater as that being the front door, that being the key spot where we want to have focus on the building. So this is really the back side of the building that is fronting on the road, but it is otherwise, other than this small loading area, which is being handled and planned very nicely and with screening. There's no need to consider that a back of a building. So it's just a lot of cities will have particular code requirements specific to municipal buildings, separate from other commercial buildings. We have not had that in the past necessarily, so we're just coming into that now. We haven't built a municipal building before or really paid a lot of attention to those requirements. But now that we have a nice plan and it seems to work, it seems to make sense to have this kind of a exception.
And I totally understand that municipal buildings will have different needs or uses, and there may be some special code or allowances for that. But it just seems like in this case, just because when I read that sentence in the code, it had to do with maybe more aesthetics, that I just felt like we're giving a carte blanche, well, maybe it's not carte blanche, but like a total exception to municipal buildings for something that's really just about screening. And I suppose other buildings won't build in the same orientation, but what if there was a building that did, and then it's just because you're not municipal, you don't get the same exception. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like if it's something like that, as opposed to a function of the building or the municipal building, that we're just granting the city like some exception. Kind of like what happened a few years ago when the city wanted exemption on advertising on fences, for like the park. And we didn't allow commercial to do the same thing, but the city can do it. And there was some discussion about, is that fair? And it's just kind of like that. So is this really just a orientation issue, or in which case other buildings might also have the same thing? Or is it really a function of the municipal building that requires that kind of a exception?
I believe it's both. With all of the functions that we have happening in our municipal building, it's a benefit to the public to have a separate area for especially the loading and unloading that needs to happen with deliveries and with recreation equipment, jerseys, balls, things like that. And so it's a benefit to have that separate. So it's function and it's also orientation. If our back door wasn't a street, we wouldn't necessarily have this concern. And I see what you're saying, because we took the whole section and said it doesn't apply, but we're actually doing all of the screening from all of the only thing we're not screening is the loading door. So everything else, the refuse, the waste area, that's all screened. And it's not a parking area, so the trucks don't park and sit or anything like that. And so I understand what you're saying. We may be exempted a bit too much because we do still want to apply that screening. And I think it's double covered because 7B still requires the screening for the refuse area. So I think that's why the way that we wrote it, we thought it was still covered down here.
But if you say municipal buildings are exempt, then doesn't it exempt it from the other thing too, or not necessarily?
Well, we have that requirement for screening twice. And so 7B still requires that we screen the refuse area, the trash area.
Okay, well, that makes me feel better. Sorry, I missed that part. I just saw the red. So, okay. Any other questions? Kind of belabored that one. All right, then I'm open to entertaining a motion. Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, based upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move to forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the proposed amendments to Title 19 with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
I'll second that.
Okay, no, it's all right. All right, so we have Commissioner Mann made the motion and Commissioner Wilden seconded. Any questions to the motion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? No, that was aye. Okay, so that passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, so what is next is approval of minutes. Did everyone have a chance to read the minutes and make any comments that you'd like to make? Okay, I'm open to a motion to approve the minutes.
I motion to approve the minutes from, February 8th, 2004.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second?
Commissioner Hill seconds. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? All right, that passes. Next is the commissioner's report, or, commissioner's comments, sorry. Any comments from the commissioners? Okay, doesn't look like it. So next is director's report.
So your next meeting is scheduled for March 14th. We have several items we're expecting on that meeting. And the last city council meeting, over the items that were approved, it was just on Tuesday this week, so 2 days ago. They approved, we had a handful of code amendments, including code amendments related to utility capacity, building facade, the bar spacing distance to residential, so different from tonight's item, and then the zero side setback in commercial zones. And then we also had the city booster station site plan and the Storage Plaza Lot 7 site plan. So you had seen all of those prior to this, and then all of those got approved at the council meeting. And we have, and then, as I mentioned, the city hall plan will be at your next meeting, so that's exciting. So.
Is the applicant for the distance from residential and bars, is it the same applicant?
No, it's, so the one from residential to bars is Bout Time, and then the one from bar to bar, they came in second, and they are the break.
Okay, all right, that's interesting. All right, thank you. Is there any need for a closed session tonight?
No.
All right, thank you. And I guess barring any other questions or comments, we're adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
How do I?